crypto is basically, or other possible options are kind of surfacing right now. And just in the last, I'll say 2 weeks specifically, to condense it a little more, we've seen a lot of people that are seeing this issue with a lot of money being printed, devaluation of the dollar and all that in the future, obviously, and then looking into other types of investments, which basically brings me to the point that Bitcoin has gone from, it was in the 11,000 and change, 11.5 or something about 2-3 weeks ago. And as of yesterday, it was actually even today, right now, is 13.5 or something, which is the highest it's been since 2018, I think. So David actually knows quite a bit more about blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. So first of all, I wanted to clarify the technology versus the currency. So let's start with the blockchain technology and kind of clarify what that is, because everybody knows that crypto is based on blockchain, but they don't understand, a lot of people don't still understand what blockchain means for the world, because blockchain is here to stay and it's here to grow and it's going to dominate a lot of our lives in the future as far as how we do business. So take it away, brother, and explain as much as you can in terms that we all understand what blockchain means for us, for contracts, for the way we do live our lives now, as far as the contracts, how blockchain will affect that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the world's biggest expert. There's
Right.
plenty of people who know more than me, but no, I mean, blockchain. The problem with I don't even like that word anymore because it's been stolen from the people actually making things by all of these posers and snake oil salesmen and pundits who just, it's become another buzzword, in the same way that like no one in the AI community really likes using the term AI anymore, because it's become so, like, people use that word constantly for things that aren't even AI and don't have actually any understanding.
Yeah,
so that's why they start using ML, and they try to stay away from AI. Blockchain, I mean, very simply, it's just a mechanism for decentralized trust. That's really what blockchain is.
So since you said that about the name, let me interrupt you for a second. Since you said that about the name, what did the name blockchain come from? Obviously, you have block and you have chain. So it was a series of blocks.
Yeah, it depends how far you want to go back, but the origins start in the 80s, 70s. Back in the early days of computing, where it's all based on cryptocurrencies. It's crypto as in cryptography,
right?
And so it all started with cryptographers back in the 70s and 80s who, as computers were being basically developed, started trying to see what they could use. What new methods of cryptography would be enabled with computers, and so that's when it all started. And so this has been building for a long time now. It took a long time to kind of figure out exactly how to turn it into a usable thing, and it all culminated with Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 when he released Bitcoin, or whoever Satoshi is released Bitcoin. But yeah, blockchain is the reason they call it that is because, for example, Bitcoin uses it's a chain of blocks, and each block is a block of transactions, basically. And like you could call it, other people call it a distributed ledger. So it's this idea that instead of having, if you're an accountant, right, and you have a ledger of all transactions that are going on this chain, instead of having it all on one computer, you have it on many, many, many computers around the world, and it's decentralized and distributed between all of them. So if someone hacks your computer or takes your computer down, you still have many, many copies of it around the world. And the difficulty of hacking it becomes astronomically higher because it's distributed, because you don't have one central point of failure, basically.
You have a lot of redundancy, so to speak, as far as where the ledger is hosted, if that's the way.
Right.
Like in the website world, the websites used to be hosted by one server, and then when that one server was hacked, the entire website, whatever, was down. Now modern servers or modern companies use, like ourselves, we use redundancy, which means that we have multiple servers with copies of the same website. So if this server goes down mechanically for whatever reason or some kind of event, floods, fires, whatever, then there's tons of other servers that have the same copy of the website. So that's just on our level that is easy to understand, but this is the same thing as the ledger that you're talking about.
Yeah, just much more distributed.
Right, much more, yeah.
So then the cryptocurrencies, they're just one implementation of blockchain, basically. Blockchain can be used for a lot of things. Currency happens to be one of the biggest and maybe arguably the most important thing that it could be used for.
It's definitely the most popular, but
yeah, obviously.
Before we get into the actual currency, what applications of blockchain are the most being implemented right now? That there's already blockchain being used for a number of contracts and things.
So you mentioned contracts. So one thing that blockchain does is it lets you create what's called smart contracts. And so what is a normal contract, right? A contract is an agreement between two people, two companies, a group of people, group of companies, whatever, right? It's an agreement between people. But the problem is that there's lots of litigation in contracts, and how you interpret the words in a contract can vary from person to person, right? And this is the job of lawyers. Lawyers look at contracts and they litigate and interpret exactly the meaning of them. And that's why you hire a lawyer to write your contracts, because in theory, they can write a contract that is bulletproof, right? There's no such thing as a bulletproof contract, but that's the goal.
They cross all the T's, dot all the I's. They make it like airtight.
It's kind of similar to when people talk about the U.S. Constitution. The way it's written is very vague, and that's why you have so many what they call constitutional scholars, where so many people interpret the Constitution in different ways, because words ultimately are amendable and they change in meaning over time. They can be interpreted in different ways. The right to bear arms, that's very generic, right? And that are there limits to that? Is it unlimited, right? So this is why you have all of this. And so the same thing with any other contract. So what a smart contract does is you can write the contract instead of in the English language or whatever language. You can write it in code. You could write it in Python. You can write it in whatever code you want. And then it's done, right? Code is code. It doesn't change, basically. And so then you can write a contract in code, and it just makes the process much more seamless and much easier. And so you really are kind of replacing the need for a lot of lawyers, the paperwork industry, which is quite the large industry, could very well be replaced by blockchain and smart contracts. So I'll give you an example. So if you have a will, wills tend to be very complicated, right? There's lots of disputes in wills. But if you just made a smart contract for the will that says, when I die, distribute my money, whatever I have in this wallet, distribute it to this wallet and this wallet and this wallet, and those are your 3 children or whatever, and don't distribute it to any other wallets, then that's it. That's the contract. And then when you die, it will automatically send it to those people. And it's done. There's no lawyer needed to interpret. You don't need to go in front of a judge and discuss who gets what. None of that. You just have a smart contract written in code, and then that money, for example, could go to your 3 children, and you say, I don't want to give it to anybody else. And that's it, and it's done. So that would be an example. Lots of examples like that.